Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Indie Corner Radio. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody, and I've got an awesome guest here. She hasn't been on any of my shows before, but she's here today, and I can't wait to talk to Christina Krakowski. How you doing, Christina?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. I got that right?
Yes,
Krakowski.
correct.
Okay. I'm really bad with people's last names, and if you listen to the show, I like sometimes I do butcher the names by accident without, asking beforehand, but I was pretty sure that
No,
that was
you
the way
got
you
it.
said it. Good. So, sort of bring us back to the beginning because you're an actress. You're also probably a filmmaker too, right? You
I
help out
do,
behind the
yeah.
scenes.
hmm
So, how did you get involved in the like acting and doing all that stuff, even from like probably when you were younger?
Yeah, so I would do community plays and school plays as a kid, just kind of like as a hobby. And then whenever I graduated from high school, I actually went briefly to college at the Art Institute for I wanted to be a comic book designer originally.
Oh,
So
really?
I've always been in the creative like field. So I went to college for that originally, and then the school ended up shutting down literally like a couple of months whenever I like was going there. And I kind of took it as a path. I'm like, maybe this isn't exactly where I'm supposed to be because I loved it and I really enjoyed it, but I really missed that like hands-on creative field, like I was studying graphic design specifically. So it was a lot of work behind a computer. And I was like, oh, I really want to just like do something fun and creative. So instead of transferring schools or going back to school, I ended up starting to train in Pittsburgh at local like workshops and acting classes. And so from there, I started my training and it just kind of took off and I loved it. And it was really special.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah.
I gotta learn. I gotta find out more about this like comic book stuff or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
so were you like into comics?
I was, yeah, and I still am. Like I don't follow them like as closely as I used to. But I was a really big fan of like DC and Marvel and would study a lot of them in school. So I actually had come up with comic book, you know, ideas like in college and even in high school. And I shelved them whenever I had left the school. But now what I've been doing is I've been revisiting them because I was like, how can I use these? I really love these ideas. And I ended up transferring one of them into a television series instead. So it was basically all there. It was just transferring it from comic book to pilot. So it's been really cool.
So wow, that's awesome. So that's like is it like a superhero thing or
So it's post-apocalyptic and it is kind of along the lines of The Walking Dead, but different. It's more on the artificial intelligence side. And I finished writing the whole first season of it, and I sent the pilot through festivals, and it actually just placed at the New York International Screenplay Awards. So really good news for it.
nice?
Yeah.
Well, so tell me about that because like how does if somebody wants to do something like that, like wants to like place those into the film festivals and stuff,
Mhm.
what happens after? Like, do managers contact you or supposedly or what happens?
They can. So it really just depends on like what each festival offers. For this one, they offer all kinds of like really cool prizes of like you get virtual pitches to different executives. Sometimes they email your script or email the idea out to different managers or different like agents or executives. So it can go down a lot of different paths. So the festival route is really cool to start dabbling in.
Yeah, I was playing around with Screencraft. I submitted something to Screencraft. It was an elevator pitch. It didn't work,
Mm-hmm.
but I just still know it's a good idea. So
Yeah.
it just might not have been what they were looking. I realized too that the people that they had as judges, a lot of them were in the horror, and that
Mm.
what I was doing was actually in the comedy, and so that might have been also a thing, you
It
know.
could be, yeah. That's the thing with festivals is you never know the audience like that you're going to be submitting to or like what they're looking for. But I definitely say, keep trying. That's all you can really do.
Exactly. You never know. And
Exactly.
I'd rather write the whole thing instead of just pitch it, because
Right.
it's more fun when it's already finished and you can just show somebody what you've done. But yeah, so you're also a writer too. That's amazing. That's
Thank you.
really great. Which one came first, writing or acting?
Man, I think they kind of came around the same time. I was always very like sensitive about my writing. I was very like afraid of criticism when it came to it. So I was very quiet about it for a long time. And a lot of that was just going on in the background. But this is the first year and the end of last year where I really started expanding on it. So it's been cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, have you had a negative reaction from somebody reading one of your scripts?
I haven't actually, like, in
That's good.
festivals and things like that, you get rejections, and that's something that you just get anywhere in this industry. But so far, everybody I've like pitched the idea to or pitched the film, the concept to, has really enjoyed it, which has been really motivating.
That's good.
Yeah.
Um, so what was your first project that you acted in?
So I did a lot of like student films and short films and festival work and things like that. But the first like major production that I was in was Massacre Academy, and that was directed by Mark Cantu.
So how did that come about?
So I had competed in the 48-hour film festival, which is like a really big festival um, competition where you have like 48 hours to make a
Mhm.
film. And Mark and I had been talking in the background like occasionally, but that was the first time I like had met him in person, and he had saw my film there, and we had been talking a little bit back and forth just within the film community, and he ended up asking if I wanted to audition for the role. So I had submitted a self tape for it and ended up getting a call back, and then ended up getting hired for it. And it was the coolest thing because that was my first like feature I was able to complete.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, was like so you did that, all of that happened, you're excited. Like
Mhm.
what did you go right into doing it or did it take a little bit of time before you guys were able to make the movie?
So I was hired for that. I think it was January of 2020. So we started filming, I think it was the following fall, was whenever we actually started filming it, if I'm not mistaken, kind of around October. So we had a lot of time to like learn the script and learn the story. It was definitely something like I wanted to do right away, but the time was nice because I was able to really dive into the role and understand the character. So yeah, it worked out really well.
It's so funny because you're saying 2020 and that was like in January, it was like
Oh yeah.
literally 2 months right before like things just went hectic and crazy.
Yeah, we filmed a lot of it during the pandemic, which made it very interesting for sure.
Was it sort of was it a hard set to kind of do because of the pandemic?
Actually, it wasn't. Like Mark is very efficient with how he runs his set. So the only thing we really had to do was be careful with how many like background extras we had. And sometimes we would have to cheat a scene to make it look like was more people than what we allowed. But for the most part, everything went very, very smoothly and efficiently and not as bad as, it could have been given the circumstances.
Well, it must have been like difficult because like COVID guideline kind of things or whatever
Right. Yeah.
and stuff. So it must have been just sort of like making sure you weren't, you weren't sick, before
Yeah,
coming,
it
you
was
know.
it was definitely like an added hurdle, but I was really proud with how like we were able to get through that. We definitely still had to wear masks and keep as much social distance as we could, but it was really great powering through that.
That's good. That's good. And has that movie come out and everything or?
It is it's in the process. We're working on the distribution side of it, but as soon as it comes out, we'll be blasting that everywhere.
So, real quick, I do want to go back to a
Yeah.
little bit before, like when you were a kid, did you ever
Mhm.
think any of this would be something that you were gonna do?
I I always wanted it and knew in my heart I wanted to do something this creative. I got bullied a lot as a kid. So I was constantly like put down or told I would never, come even close to accomplishing half the things I've done. So I think like the littler version of myself would be extremely proud of how far we've come so far with everything. Um, yeah.
That's cute because like, I'm sure when you were young, you were, being bullied makes you probably a little shyer than, whatever, right?
For sure. And it was just really bad. Like honestly, there were some days I couldn't even go to school because it would be so bad. But knowing that I made it out of there and I was still able to accomplish what I wanted to was great. Like I always kept in touch with acting. Even whenever I left, I was still doing like creative things like during like middle school and high school. I kind of took a break from it and took a step back. I was still taking classes in school as much as I could for it, but I was really feeling like really intimidated and just insecure about it. But after I graduated, I'd taken a year off from acting completely. And then whenever I rekindled with it, I knew I was like, I'm in the right place. This is exactly what I want to be doing.
So when you were in middle school and high school or whatever, and you were
Mhm.
taking that break, but before then, did you feel like you were being bullied, in the acting world, or was it, just outside of that period?
It was just kind of kids, just being mean a lot of the times, like middle school and high school, especially now with like the digital age and social media, it can be really tough, especially whenever it follows you home. So it wasn't necessarily because of what I wanted to do or just kind of like anything with the creativity. It was just kind of a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough because you never like kids don't really realize how mean they can be,
Oh no.
when they're
Yeah,
younger and everything, and how that can actually affect somebody growing up. Um,
for sure.
I was bullied a lot, and
Mm.
so in middle school, high school was completely different, and I don't
Mm.
know what happened, like I thought it was gonna be worse when I was a
Yeah.
kid, and maybe that was it. Maybe just my expectations were,
Already
very
low.
high, or
Yeah.
it was actually very high, and I
Oh,
was
hi,
like, oh
hi.
yeah,
Sorry.
and I was like, I don't know if this is gonna be like way worse, but it
Hmm.
was actually a lot easier. So, but my middle school years, I mean, I'm writing a whole movie about my middle school year experiences, how they
Hmm.
traumatized me.
Oh
And
yeah.
and the funny thing is, no, some people don't even realize
Mm-mm.
that they don't remember that they did any of this stuff, because you weren't like and I'm sure you have bullies that you kind of don't remember, like they're that don't
Right.
remember you or whatever if they saw you, you know,
Right.
and don't remember what they did to you, basically.
Hmm.
So it's terrible. It's terrible. So sorry you went through it too, because I don't know, you seem so sweet. I don't see why anyone would ever bully you, you know. Um,
It's always just been kind of like things happening around me where, just like miscommunication or rumors. Those things can spread like wildfire
mm.
and people never go to the direct source. They just go off of assumptions or go off of, whatever they want to believe. And it's just kind of that, circulation.
Yeah, and you were saying you were kind of in the digital age then, for me it was not. So,
Hmm.
people are just terrible and, normal,
Right.
or whatever, regular life. But man, if I had Facebook and all that stuff back then, geez, I would probably,
Yeah,
it'd be worse. And so I kind of feel
exactly.
terrible for that, for a lot of people that have to deal with that.
For
Yeah.
sure.
So I'll go back to Massacre Academy.
Hmm.
And this is your first big role, and you're really excited. How was your character?
My character was somebody I could actually relate to a lot because she kind of got put down a lot. She was a little bit timid, especially at the start of the film. She was a college student and she didn't really know who she was. She knew who she wanted to be. She was having a disconnect of how to get there. So it was definitely not a character that I felt like I had to like strain to connect with. It actually felt pretty natural, which really helped going into my first, big role like that.
Yeah. And so once you kind of like, what do you do anything to prepare as an actor?
So I studied Stanislavski and Meisner technique, and I kind of picked pieces from both that work for me and combined them. So I kind of pick and choose what I use, and it also just kind of depends on the role I have. But I do have a little bit of a process.
Okay. So, okay, I want to know this because
Yeah.
I dabble in acting as well, and I have
Okay.
a small part coming up.
Cool.
And and so I'm always interested in learning other people's crafts and everything, especially Meisner, because I have that book, Meisner on Acting.
Hmm.
Wonderful book. But unfortunately, I have a friend who's in LA, who I used to roommate with, and she studied Meisner, but she and Stanislavski, but she said y- that her teacher instructor told her just disregard the book, for
Hmm.
some reason or another. I don't know if there's I guess they're teaching you. They don't want you to like already think you know too much or something.
Right.
I don't know. But anyway, I love Meisner. I think
Hmm.
Meisner is a fantastic teacher and whatnot. But how do you take those tools for like a small role?
So that's a really great question. Like a lot of the times for me, like if I'm doing a smaller role, there's not always much to go off of, you know? So a lot of it is just kind of filling in the blanks yourself. And that's really great for Meisner because Meisner is all about being in the moment. And so you almost are like embodying this character from scratch. And it can sometimes feel like with the body language and stuff like that, it's almost a little bit of improv because you're going off of things that weren't written for you like in the script. So it can actually be a little bit of fun because you have a little bit of creativity and openness to play around as long as it's within what the director and everyone's looking for.
So when you're in the role, are you like
Mhm.
there in your head? Like, do you think like when you see everybody around you, do you think like those are those characters, this is this world? Like, do you really feel like that?
I do, in a sense. Like I almost have to trick my brain of like, this is really happening, like this is really where I am right now. I'm hearing these lines for the first time. I'm seeing these people, that's kind of why I really like the process that I work with of like kind of with Stanislavski, it's all about like diving into the character and diving into like what's happening in the story. And then with Meisner, I almost throw all that information out and just trust that my brain knows it. And then I'm in the moment for it. And I'm listening, I'm being present. And it almost is like you're telling your brain, this is the first time I'm doing this scene or living in this moment.
So yeah, so you have a scene with somebody and like in life right now, you're here with me, we're in the
Right.
moment, but there you also have lines to memorize, you have
Mm-hmm.
you have to walk this and that becomes so probably so distracting too as an actor. Like when you want to walk over here, but
Mm-hmm.
like the director's like, no, you got to be over here because this is where the camera is,
Right.
right, set up and everything. But your character's like, why would I go over there? Like this
Mm-hmm.
is where my character would go. But you obviously have to listen to where the director is and then kind of force your character to do what you have to do in the script. Is that how you
Right.
feel?
Yeah, so like luckily for me, the directors I've worked with, I've been able to have really good communication with them. So sometimes they're very flexible and open to hearing like suggestions or like what I'm thinking about the role or the scene. And that's been really helpful because it really helps bring the reality and that extra realness to it of, okay, I get to play around a little bit. I'm not totally confined by the rules. Some directors are like that, and that's totally fine too. They know what they want it that way, and that's how it is. And then that's a fine style as well. But luckily for me, I've been able to have that freedom of like, okay, if I want to try this scene a little different, I'm okay to do so.
That's wonderful. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you never know. Some directors might be like that, but you sound like you'd be flexible to do whatever the director told you, even if like you feel different.
Exactly. And like even whenever I have a suggestion or something, or somebody suggests something that they feel like won't mesh, they'll be like, this is why this won't work. Like they'll explain it, which really helps to really, really see their vision.
Exactly. So, have you ever gotten like either gotten a script sent to you or an audition for something and you just knew you weren't right for it? And do you still audition or do you just tell them no?
It depends. It definitely depends because the thing is, if I know I'm not going to be able to bring this to the level that they're looking for, I'm not going to rob somebody else who would be the perfect fit for that role. As well as like I'm not going to set myself up to fail either. If it's something that's challenging and I'm wanting to take it on, that's a different story versus something that I just don't relate to, don't enjoy. Like it's just going to be a miserable process all around if it's something I really am not into at all. So I try to make sure that whenever I take on a challenging role or a role that's different, I'm really able to commit to it.
So you've had to turn down roles before.
I haven't actually had to turn down role like auditions sometimes, like because a lot of the things I do, like I see the character descriptions beforehand or I see the synopsis beforehand. So if I see something and I'm like, oh, that just doesn't seem like the right fit for me, I just won't submit for it.
Is there, I mean, do you have anything in mind of like what you don't want kind of to be a part of?
I don't know. Like I don't think there's anything specific. Like I just kind of see it and then I'm like either yes, this is really cool or I don't know, maybe this isn't the right fit for me, but nothing like off the top of my head where I'm just like, oh, absolutely not.
There's not, well, I mean, there are certain things like, uh the R word, like things like
Right.
that can make people feel, especially because it's a lot of horror films, and stuff.
Hmm.
And I almost don't feel like that's even needed these days. Like, I mean, it still happens, but it's like we don't
Right.
need to see them. Like sometimes, like I feel like they don't mean, maybe they don't mean to do this, but they glorify rape and stuff and things
Hmm.
like that, and we don't really need to see that in our culture. No.
Right. There's a time and a place to show it and like talk about it, but it doesn't have to be super detailed or drawn out. It can be tastefully done to where you're still getting that message across, but we do not need to be traumatized through it.
Yeah, I mean, back
Yeah.
in like what the 70s and 80s, they were doing stuff like that just because it
Hmm.
was, it would get attention or it would get, sort of
Right. It was shock value.
shock value. But now it's like we've had enough shock value in our life and it happens in way too much in real life that like, I feel,
Right.
maybe we don't need to see, we don't need to see those movies.
I can definitely agree on that for sure.
Yeah. So when you audition, do you have a specific thing for that too? Do you like do you have specific things you do for before you do it or after or whatever?
So it depends if it's in person or not. Like this is my self-tape setup right here where I do my interviews from. So I literally do them right here in my apartment. But if it's in person, like sometimes I'll try to, because I struggle with anxiety. So I try to make sure that I'm like allowing myself to breathe, not stressing myself out too much, and just trying to like keep my cool through them. So sometimes I'll just like listen to music or, go over if it's a cold reading, the lines or if it's a monologue. But I don't have like an intensive process for auditioning.
You sort of do it.
Yeah.
When's the best time for you to audition?
Um, do you mean like time of day or
Time of
like
day
time
or
of
night or
year?
you know.
Yeah, so I think sometimes I like to audition in the mornings just to get it over with and just so it's done and I'm not worrying about it all day of like, oh, I gotta go to the audition, gotta go to the audition. So I'm somebody who likes to try to audition earlier than later, but some people like it the opposite.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't have control of that, especially if it's an
Oh yeah.
in-person,
Hmm.
you do it whenever. So if it's a self-tape, you
It's a
like,
little different.
with your background, you can pick and choose. But
Yeah.
that's wonderful because that's actually smart to do it in the morning. And then you can just go on about your day. But are you ever like too tired and you're just like, yeah, I'll just do it later?
Oh no, no. Like when it comes to auditioning, like sometimes I feel that way. I'm like, oh man, like, do I really want to go do? I've done like 10, like a few in a row or whatever. Or if I've had like a really strenuous day of work or something, I'm like, do I really want to do this? But I remind myself, I'm like, I moved here for this. Like, this is what I want to do, and this is just the process. And sometimes you might not be feeling your 100%, but showbiz must go on.
And you actually are in like an area where there's a lot of activity for film.
So yeah, I just moved to Atlanta 3 weeks ago. So I yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a long time coming. I've been trying for 4 years to get down here. But the pandemic hit and then I shot two feature films. So it was good and bad reasonings so yeah.
What made you choose Atlanta over like LA?
So funny story about that actually. So I was a huge fan of The Walking Dead, hence, the comics and the shows and everything I like. So I used to go to conventions for them all the time. I ended up meeting Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who plays Negan in The Walking Dead. He's
Nice.
on Grey's Anatomy and Supernatural.
Supernatural,
Um,
he's the father, you know?
uh-huh. So I met him when I was still an acting student, and I'd asked him like, "Hey, is there any advice? Like, I just am curious." And so he told me to move to Atlanta. He said, "There's a lot of film work here. It's not LA, so it's not super expensive and oversaturated." And he said, New York's kind of tough. He was like, "Come here." And so I did.
It's funny because you were saying the Walking Dead, and The Walking Dead it was filmed in Atlanta, and
Hmm.
everything. So, and that's probably like if you're really that big of a fan, it might be like your Graceland, like it might be the
Yeah.
area you like to go to. LA is my Graceland, and so when I moved out there in 2020, greatest
Hmm.
time to move somewhere. I ended up going there because those were there were areas in there that I just wanted to be able to drive to like the Karate Kid apartments and stuff
Right.
and everything, and I just don't really like there was nothing in Atlanta that I wanted, like it didn't have that feeling that that LA had for me. Now,
Hmm.
that's wonderful that for you, because a lot of people have been talking to me about going to Atlanta, and some
Hmm.
people have moved down there, and everything. I'm just afraid it's going to become like what was in LA, where it was oversaturated in LA, and then so everybody
Hmm.
moved to Atlanta. And now I feel like it's going to get
Gonna get
oversaturated in LA.
oversaturated in Atlanta, so everyone's gonna, yeah, for sure.
They're going to
And
move
that's
to New York or
somewhere
somewhere
else.
else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's definitely a concern. But I don't know. I just wanted to try it out. I vacationed here a couple of times before, and I really like the energy. So I was like, what do I got to lose at this point?
And have you booked a lot of work since then yet? I mean, I guess you just moved, so.
So I booked a few projects back in Pittsburgh, which is kind of funny because I came down here and then so I'll be going back up there. And I'm in talks of doing a few projects, but something else I just got involved in, which I wasn't expecting to, but I'm not disappointed, is print modeling. So I came down here for acting and ended up getting booked for a bunch of like print modeling jobs and things like that. So it's been very, very exciting trying a different side of the industry.
Yeah, so that is different too, because you
Yeah.
have to have like there's certain things you have to know in that business and everything that I don't even know because I'm not in that
Yeah.
industry. So that's wonderful. So do you have somebody teaching you how to do that, or are you just kind of going in there and doing it?
So I actually competed in pageants as a teenager a few times, and so it's very similar to print modeling and like to the modeling industry. So I learned the basics while I was doing that. It's just now getting back in touch with that because I was rather young whenever I was doing it. So it's been a few years, but it hasn't been a complete stretch to where I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. So
Yeah,
it's been good.
so you sort of have some experience where, well, that's good because then you're not a total newbie for that. And
No, yeah.
yeah, so you'll be able to go out there and I don't know, man. Are you able to just like strike poses? Like, do you know all that stuff, right?
I do. Like some things. It's definitely different from being like acting in front of a camera, but you kind of adjust as needed, and it's fun in its own ways for sure.
I've heard like some people treat it like acting,
Hmm.
because in both you have to be sort of um you have to have your posture right, you have to have
Hmm.
a certain, and a lot of times actors have to pose and do pictures and everything for behind the scenes stuff or, promotion and everything. So it's almost like you model all the time anyway. So
Right,
it's got to be pretty
exactly.
easy for you.
Yeah, they're both about engaging an audience, so that's kind of what it's all about. And so it wasn't too hard of a stretch to try it.
Well, it's good because then, you've got your acting going, you got your writing going, and then you got your print model job going. You're not going to need a
Mhm.
survivor job or anything.
Oh
Like
yeah.
you've got everything just, happening all at once and right when you move too. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's definitely worked out because we had our premiere for well Paulo, which was the second feature that I just started as the final girl for. And that was a week before I moved. So I had the premiere and then I moved a week later and then everything's just kind of started unpacking itself basically in really great ways. Like, Will Follow just got signed for distribution. So that's really cool. And then getting all these print modeling jobs and then getting projects back in Pittsburgh. It's been a really awesome wave I'm riding right now with things.
Yeah. I actually just had Spencer on here,
Oh,
Spencer
cool.
Madison. Yeah, and we are talking about the bobbleheads, and
Oh,
everything.
yeah.
That's insane. Do you have your own bobblehead?
Yeah, the little Pop Funko doll things that
Yeah,
everybody collects. I loved it. I do have mine. I brought it down here with me. It's over on my stand. Yeah.
that's so cute. I love that because like that's really neat that they made those. I'd asked her, and I guess she didn't know, but guessing you might not know the answer too. But are they actually selling those, or is it just for the
I
cast and
have
crew?
no, yeah, I have no idea. I know they were made for like the promotional event of the premiere, but I'm not sure with anything after that, to be honest with you.
That would be cool. Like,
Mhm.
go to like Target and see your own like bobblehead there,
Right.
that would be insane. But it's awesome.
It
Like,
is, yeah.
but yeah, it's a wonderful life that you get to live right now because you're like on that rush, and everything.
Right, yeah. And it took a lot of hard work to get here. I did not start anywhere close to here. So being able to like be doing these jobs and getting booked for this work, I'm very, very grateful for it.
Do you think that a lot of actors, like, period, they think like, oh, I'm gonna be famous and it's gonna be like I'm gonna be in one or two projects and then do you think, or at least some actors think that way?
They might, yeah. I know that's definitely crossed my mind of like, oh, this might be it. You never know. Like sometimes you get those fleeting thoughts, but you just have to remind yourself like the effort that you put in is what you're going to end up getting out of it. So if you're really striving for it and you really believe in yourself and you are going at it every single day, it's a really, really tough industry, but you never know where it's going to take you. Like ideally, it's going to take you as far as you want it to go. And sometimes that doesn't happen realistically. But if you know you're putting in the effort, hopefully there's a very good chance for you that you would get that payoff.
That's a really good point. So when we go back to us talking about like preparing for the role and
Mm-hmm.
doing that stuff and making sure, you know, you're exactly the character that you want to be, then you go out and you do it. You give
Mm-hmm.
your 100%. That's you giving it 100% no matter what happens. You're not in control of that after that, like whether or not the movie gets picked up for a good distribution or, whatever. You're not in control. You're in control of you doing your best job, and hopefully people will see that.
Right.
Has there ever been a day that you acted in something you're like, oh man, that I blew that line or I didn't do that well.
Oh, I'm sure. Especially like for me, auditions have always been like kind of tough. So I've definitely bombed a few auditions in my days. Usually for set, like sometimes I have days where I'm like, oh, maybe I wasn't feeling it 100% today, but I really do strive like every time I'm on set to be as prepared as possible because I remind myself, I'm like, this isn't just for me. Like I'm creating a writer's vision, a director's vision, and something for an audience. So I always try to be as on point as I can, but some days you just have days where you're just not feeling well, you're just not there. So, it happens.
what are like the days like? I mean, like most shoots, are they night shoots or day shoots or both?
It depends on the film. For Wolf Hollow, we had a lot of night shoots, or we would have to cheat the night shoots. So it was mainly during the night, but occasionally, like we had a few days where we had to have daytime.
Which one would you prefer, a nighttime shoot or a daytime shoot?
I don't know. It really just depends. Like I know for Wolf Hollow, I preferred the night shoots because it wasn't as hot and warm. Because we shot in July and June, like over the
Hmm.
summer, so that definitely made it easier.
Yeah, and you shot that in Pittsburgh or so,
We
or
did, yeah. We shot that in Pittsburgh, North Versailles at the Haunted Hayride. Majority of it was there.
nice. So, and can you tell us like anything about your character? Like, was it crazy to play your character?
Yes, I absolutely loved the character. I played Alex Ramiro, and she was a producer. So it was almost like a film in a movie because it was a group of moviegoers going out to the woods to explore and do a location scout. And they didn't know that there were werewolves around. So I played Alex, and
Like,
Alex
who
was
knows when there's
like,
werewolves
who knows,
around,
you
right?
know? So I played Alex, and she was like the polar complete opposite of what I had played for Massacre Academy. So it was really nice to be able to do something different, and opposite, and stretch my range as an actor. So there was a lot of like stunt work, and there was a lot of like special effects and makeup and things like that. So it was a lot, but I loved it. I loved every second of it.
Were you like, so did you have to like audition again, even though you had worked with Mark before?
I did not. I did not have for this role. Mark had seen a little bit of my, skills for Massacre Academy and saw my range, and he really just had a vision for this film, and I just happened to fit it this time around.
That's good. You
Yeah.
know, it's nice when you work with somebody and they want to bring you back,
Yeah.
because I mean, it could be worse. It could be like, they're like, nah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
They didn't really work out the last time, or whatever.
Exactly.
But it's like it becomes like a family, right?
Right. It definitely does for sure.
So yeah, that's awesome. I've been dying to see Massacre Academy. And
Hmm.
that's why I asked if it had been out because I don't remember seeing it on
Yeah.
Tubi or anything yet. And I know Wolf Hollow just had its premiere, so I'm guessing that's gonna go into distribution too. So it's gonna have like two films coming out like back to back. That's
Yeah, for sure. It's gonna be really cool. I know Wolf Hollow is supposed to be like projected in August is what we're thinking. But we'll definitely have more updates on that soon.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you work with somebody, you work again. Are you guys planning something else and all, or
I don't
you
know if
can't
I can
say
say. I'm
probably.
not sure. I'm not sure. There is definitely a future for more projects with Mark and I. Definitely. I'm known to say things I'm not supposed to say in interviews. Sometimes, occasionally, I've gotten so much better. So I'm not sure. But I can definitely say that it is not the last of me working with him.
What's the guy who plays Hulk? Mark um
Ruffalo.
Ruffalo. So you're the female Mark Ruffalo because
Mark
he's
Ruffalo, yeah,
oh
Tom Holland. Yeah.
Tom does say random stuff, doesn't he? Like
Does,
he gets
yeah.
himself in trouble.
All the
Um,
time.
because well, I mean Disney and MCU are very they're
Hmm.
very like, is that something you strive for? Do you want to hope to like be in a MCU movie someday or something?
That would be really incredible. I would be totally honored to be on a part of any kind of like big franchise for sure.
MCU, like I think Marvel has a headquarters in Atlanta. I'm sure you've been by there or so, or at least know where it's
Yeah,
at.
I have. I have.
Just be walking by, maybe you bump into Kevin Foggy,
Oh, hey, yeah.
Well,
Would that
you
be
can't
it?
be like cast me because,
No,
like that's just rude. But,
that's true.
I remember I was in when I was in LA, the first
Hmm.
time ever, like I had went to go visit it just to see if I would enjoy being there. And I was in an Uber and there was this woman just walking her dog, right?
Hmm.
It was like this little teeny tiny dog, and it was this like woman completely full makeup and like model looking, and she was walking by, and this guy's like, "Yeah, that's an actress." And I go, "Okay, how do you know, right?" And he's
Yeah.
like, "Because she's walking by all three of the studios with her
Hmm.
dog in full makeup, and I guarantee you she's
Sure,
looking
it
to get
wasn't me.
cast."
No, I'm just kidding.
What?
I said, are you sure it wasn't me? No, I'm just kidding though.
I'm pretty
That's
sure
smart
it
though. I'm like
wasn't you,
taking
but I mean,
notes.
were you out there in 2020?
I was
Doing that?
not. No.
Are you gonna be walking by your dog with your dog up to,
Taking notes over here.
yeah, for note number one, buy a dog.
Yes,
Um,
get a dog.
get a dog, start walking around. But like that was like literally what people did in LA. And I was like, wait, what? Like they just walk around and hope that somebody comes up and goes, "You look like you're perfect for this part." And that's what they did. And I
Yeah,
thought that was crazy. Like, I mean, I don't think that's how you break into the business necessarily, unless it is.
that's the luckiest way to get in.
Right. I mean, she was attractive. That's all I could say. She was like some
Right,
model, blonde model, but like still, like I was just like, that's to me, that's weird. Like
right.
I thought it took like hard work and everything,
It definitely does.
Yeah.
Yeah. But some
It,
people get lucky, I guess. So, you never know. But yeah, I would say the odds are slim on that one.
well, people are doing like TikTok now and getting famous
Hmm.
and everything. What do you think about that?
I think it's great that we have so many different ways to show creativity now and different, doors opening up to be able to, just show talents. I think it is kind of tough though for working actors whenever it's becoming now of like how many followers you have versus how many years of experience you have. You definitely see a lot of these TikToker influencers getting roles when chances are they might not have ever even walked into an acting class before. So it can definitely be a bit of a challenge. And I could see it having potential of losing work for working actors who are really are striving for this. But, it's tough. It's definitely tough.
Well, here's what I think might happen. Because if they really do that, like they look for a TikToker who has a billion, followers, as opposed to somebody who's got less followers but is
Mm-hmm.
actually a better actor. They're gonna cast the TikToker, and then the movie's gonna fail,
Flop. Yeah.
because of the acting is terrible, and I've
Mm-hmm.
seen this too. I've seen some YouTubers that like they get their chance to go act, but they've never acted. They've done like little skits or something,
Right.
and the movies don't do very well, and it's because they're they're hoping that all billion followers watch the movie, and
Right.
that's not going to happen necessarily.
No, there's no guarantee.
Right. And they're gonna look at the trailer and go, "Oh, he's a great TikToker, but I don't want to see that." You know?
Right. Exactly. So it can definitely go in so many different directions.
But do you have your own TikTok?
I do. Yeah, I do. I started it just kind of casual and then it blew up a little bit. So I do stream frequently and I try to teach actually like not teach, but like guide people who are entering the industry. Like I do a lot of like live Q&As and answer questions on there about the industry. So it's been cool because I've been able to meet a lot of awesome people who are chasing the same dream. So
Well, yeah, back in the day, people used to call that competition and
right.
everything. And now it's just like it's a community, which I think is
Yeah.
fantastic. And I think also a little bit of that is the internet.
Hmm.
Now you talked about earlier how you got bullied on like, d the digital, world and everything.
Right.
And now you're on Facebook, and stuff and all this stuff, and your career is, going well. So do
Right.
you think like social media is really good for the arts, or do you think it can be detrimental?
I think it's a mix. For me, I've definitely built tougher skin than I had when I was younger. And I think that it has its benefits, but it still has a long way to go before it's considered a safe or healthy place to be on. And it probably will never get there, unfortunately, but it still is like if you can overlook ignorance and you can overlook, you know, what people are saying, it can be a really great place to just find the ones who matter and whose opinions will, you know, benefit you.
And well, it's also very good networking, period.
Exactly, that too. Exactly. It's great for networking as well.
Yeah, so you look up, like I think I mean I found you through
Mhm.
networking, or
Right,
whatever, and
exactly.
yeah, so you find somebody, you go, oh man, that would be cool to. I'd love to work with her. I'd love to. For me, it was like I'd love to interview you.
Yeah.
I'd love to work with you too, but like I'm not really doing anything right now. But like that's the thing. You go and say, oh man, it would be awesome to, to chat with this person, and then you do, and then you become, probably friends or whatever, and then hopefully work with the person,
Exactly.
like at least get the audition, you know. Um, do you view like some auditions as like this might be my only chance with this person?
I I don't. I don't. Because I've kind of learned at this point that no just means not today. That doesn't mean they're not going to bring me back in 6 months for a different role, which might fit me a lot better. So I try not to view it in a negative light. It can be really tough. It can be super tough to not take these things personal. But to be an actor, you have to learn that rejection, because it is going to happen, whether you're just starting out or whether you're Tom Hanks. You know, you're going to deal with rejection somewhere along the line.
And are you really good with constructive criticism?
I've definitely grown like to be more accepting of it for sure. Because that's the thing is they're not giving it to bring you down. And if they are, they're not giving it to you properly because constructive criticism is to only help you grow.
Mm-hmm. No, and I totally agree. I think, and we've got what we got letterboxed where people can review the films, and sometimes
Hmm.
those people should not be reviewing films
No,
because
no,
they're just nasty people
yeah.
out there. I don't know if you're, if you had like even known about this back in the day, but they used to have on IMDb, they used to have forums,
Oh,
and stuff.
no.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so it was where it was just because that was pre like Facebook. So it or at least Facebook being you know, acceptable for everybody. Because back then in like I think 2005 or whatever, when it was there was they would have these forums, and people would say just the nastiest things about anybody that they wanted to say. Like
Mm.
and it was anonymous. They could put whatever name they wanted, and it didn't matter. And there's even another one app thing that's on like Twitter where people just anonymously send people questions or comments or something. I'm just like, this is just not a good idea,
No,
because
no.
like anybody can say it and then they can get away with whatever they want to say, which I mean, if you're, like it's just rude, it's
Yeah,
not fun.
exactly.
So, and I do reviews, of films and everything. And when we do it, we have a stinkometer, which sounds
Hmm.
terrible, but it's like, we rate it from one being good to 10 being stinky, a bad film. We like bad films. So, some people kind of view it negatively, and I'm like, no, we enjoy these things, like we're
Yeah,
having fun. So whenever we're doing that, we're not trying to be mean,
no.
but we are stating our opinions and we're backing them up, and a lot of people don't understand that sort of thing. I sort of view it as constructive criticism, but some
Right.
people don't. People in this industry, some people are not as thick-skinned as you seem to be.
Yeah.
How did you get that thick skin?
Definitely through the bullying and through a lot of hard times I've had to go through in life. It still does, like, depending on different things, it depends. Like, things do sometimes get to me, but it's about picking and choosing your battles with it, honestly. But actually, like, acting as well, like, being on set, being in projects, seeing everything around you happening, like, you start to realize a lot of the times it's nothing personal. And just because one person says something mean, like, that doesn't mean somebody else is going to have the same opinion.
Exactly. So, okay, so I want to know, you have these roles that you've done. Like what is your dream role? What is the role that you wish you could
Oof,
have?
that's a really good question. So for me, my favorite genre is sci-fi, but I also really like action. So I would have to say, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, I would love a reoccurring role in some kind of a franchise, whether that's television or film. Just a character where I can just really dive in and explore and see their full arc all the way through. Like doing movies is amazing, and I love it. You know, it's why I do this. But being able to come back as your character multiple times, you see a different arc than you see in just an 80-minute film. It's really cool to be able to know this character for an extended amount of time.
That's amazing. Like, yeah, because I work on projects and a lot of times from a lot of my scripts I bring back a lot of the same characters back
Mm-hmm.
again. And then I've had this thing where I have like d doppelgangers where
Mm,
the char and I say like this world that I've created has doppelgangers in them so that and if I do kill an actor or a character off, I don't have to kill the actor off totally where I can bring back their doppelganger for another
right,
movie or
twin,
something
yeah.
and say that that's but then the only problem is then you have to explain in every movie. So somebody who's just watching one movie might not, get that
See
or
the
whatever.
correlation, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so you worked on a script that you're
Hmm.
the pilot, and you actually did you say you did the whole season?
I did, yeah. I was gonna stop at the pilot, but I was just so passionate about it that I finished writing it all, and
How many
yeah.
pages per script?
It's written to be a full 44-minute series or for 40-minute episode. So there's about between like 35 and 50 pages per script, which is insane.
And how many scripts did you write?
6 episodes.
Okay, six. Okay, I was
So
gonna say
it's
like
not,
10
yeah.
or 20.
Right. No, I started with six, and then I did outline season two, which probably would be about 12 episodes. It would probably double, but
That actually makes sense because a lot of shows they only do about six episodes to start with, and then
to
they
test it out, then it expands.
yeah,
Exactly.
especially if it's a property that they're not then the world's not familiar with, or whatever. So they have no
Exactly.
idea if I'm wishing you the best of luck with that one
Thank
because
you.
the TV series are wonderful and they are a way for the world to sort of see a universe continue and continue. Like you said, a franchise, like that could
Hmm.
be your story could be a franchise that continues and maybe grows and does a movie or something someday and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Or has
Yeah.
spawns books, like that you're not writing, somebody else is writing them. Like
Right.
that would be insane to me. Like that's fun to like imagine,
It
you
is
know.
absolutely.
So, what is your what is something that you want to like tell other actors out there that, like if they're just starting out?
My biggest advice that I always tell everyone is to get into an acting class. And it's not even just to start to understand like the different methods and find one that like works for you. It's also to help with your networking. You need to know somebody to start with. And the best people to know are people who are also chasing the same things. So your fellow classmates, as well as your teacher who can, hopefully get you on the right path of where you need to be headed. So I always tell them to get into an acting class and just start small. People go into it and they're like, I need to go for the lead role and everything. Start with some background work, some student films, and just work your way up.
Yeah, I totally agree because
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people want to be the lead, but
Mm-hmm.
some people would just rather be a supporting star anyway,
Yeah,
or
that's true.
I enjoyed being a background extra in some
It
Lifetime
can be
movies.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, just basically just sit on my butt and wait for them to call me to
Mm-hmm.
sit on my butt, maybe, like or
Get
whatever.
paid.
Yeah, I just watched one of them that I was in and I was waiting for I was like, oh yeah, I forgot, like, because I'd done two scenes, and I forgot I had done one of the restaurants, and unfortunately, you see like my elbow,
Oh,
and I was like, dang. But I was like, but you then the other scene you see me, so I'm like, all right, that's fine. But
there
you
you
see
are.
my
Yeah.
elbow, and then they actually credited me at the end.
Oh,
I've never
wow.
gotten credited for being an extra, like
That's
usually.
yeah, that's really rare sometimes, you know. That's cool that you got that.
Yeah,
How
so it
about
was
it?
nice. It was a
Yeah.
kind of a cool like I was just like because me and my former roommate were like or I watched it and then I sent her those clips and stuff so from her. It's like
That's so
weird.
cool.
I never knew like people did that, period.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
must be a lifetime thing. I don't know. Maybe they just want to
Maybe.
help everybody out because I don't know. But it was nice.
Yeah.
So have you done background too or
I did a couple projects whenever I was first starting acting because it's a really good way to learn set etiquette and learn like how a set is run, so that you have the expectation set for you. So for when you are the supporting role or the lead role, you know what you're supposed to be doing.
exactly. Well, there you go. Do you have any projects coming up?
I do. So here in the next few weeks, I'm going back to Pittsburgh to film a short film. It's called "What Scares You," and it is a really cool, like psychological thriller. It's with Jason Burke, who is a really good friend of mine, and the I play a character named Carrington, and she is going through a lot of emotional baggage. She's got a lot of layers to her, and I'm very excited to get to dive in and explore this a little bit farther. So it's going to be a really cool project.
That's awesome. Like I love
Yeah,
that. Like I love that you're out there still doing short films because some people are like, oh, I'm doing features now, don't need to do shorts. And I feel like it should be should do everything, if you can, just
exactly. I am always open to finding different projects and working on all kinds of them because for me, it's just all about staying busy, keeping sharp with the skills and bringing these visions to life. It's so cool, whether it's a short or a feature. Like if it's a cool concept, I want to be part of it.
yeah. So do you have like a reel that people can see?
I do. It's I have to work on it a little bit more, and I'm just waiting for some of these films to come out so I can publicly display the reel. But it's definitely gonna have a lot of awesome clips in it whenever it's done.
That's awesome. I love
Yeah.
that. Like that's did you do that yourself or are you having somebody else like editing it?
I sometimes have people help. I might give it a go and try it myself, but if I can't figure it out, I'll have somebody else do it.
I use an editing software for a lot of these, like even these videos and stuff called Splice.
Yeah.
It costs like $5 a month or whatever, but it's like, I mean, $5 a month to have an editing software on my phone
Yeah.
is not is that that's a pretty good price to pay. But yeah, it's a wonderful like tool to be able to just cut things, and I've made my reels and stuff through that and whatnot. So I recommend it if you don't already have like a
Oh,
good
cool. Yeah.
editing system or whatever. And is there anything else going on? Is there anything else you like to talk about?
I'm not sure. Other than the short film coming up, that's kind of my next big thing. I'm going to be going to a convention in Pittsburgh for Three Rivers Con to promote Wolf Hollow. I know that's going on, and just a lot of like print modeling jobs. I've been working with a really awesome photographer named Dan O'Connell, and we've been making some really cool things. So, yeah.
Nice. Are you gonna have your own table at the convention?
So I don't know how the setup's gonna be actually. I'm just going back and coming into town to support it and be there and just really help push it. But Mark's the one in charge of all of that. So I just kind of find out later how
You just
everything
show
is.
up and sign
I just show
autographs,
up. Yeah.
and when people want autographs, you're like, okay, oh,
Right.
that'll be $20, All
Yeah.
right.
Oh gosh.
Um, that's the funny thing is like when to bring back The Walking Dead is like I would
Yeah.
go to these conventions and I would see some people with like that was like a zombie in one episode or something, and they'll like
Trying
want
to sign autographs.
yeah, they want $20 or something, and I'm like, Oh my God,
Mm,
no, thank you.
yeah.
It's nice to meet you, but I'm gonna go over here, or
Hmm.
whatever. Because it's just to me, it's like, I don't know. I'm very stingy with my money at these conventions because,
I
like,
know they can be expensive. They definitely add up. I've gone to my fair share of conventions, so I know exactly what you're talking about. But I mean, it's cool that they accomplished what they did to get there, but I definitely know what you're talking about for sure.
yeah, some people I know won't even like put it on their resume that they were like a walker in The Walking Dead, just
Yeah,
because it's background, it's whatever. And so
it's a notable
sometimes,
show, but like the role.
yeah, you kind of want to at least a part, like except there was the girl that played like the first zombie, like the little girl
Yes,
zombie.
I
I met
forget her
her,
name.
Addie Miller, and I met her and my buddy, one I'm doing the movie with, he directed her back in the
Oh
days.
wow.
I've met her mom, like sweet people, she's all grown up now. Like she's not a little
Yeah.
girl anymore.
No.
So it's just weird to like go, oh crap, they're like in their 20s. Like
Yeah.
time is either really being mean to us or something, 'Cause that show's been on the air for a while, I think.
It was. Yeah,
Was.
I was about her age whenever it came out. So I wanted to start watching it then, but I couldn't keep track, because I was younger in episodes. But I started watching it in high school, like religiously.
Right. And that's cool that you became like a Walking Dead fan. I couldn't get into the show. I tried. I got up to the governor stuff and I was like, just can't do it. Like
Yeah, it's not for everybody, but it definitely has a lot of like cool aspects to it for sure.
yeah, and I like the family dynamic of it. Like, it does
Hmm.
feel sort of family like and whatnot. And I love I think was it who played was it Stephen Yoon? Was he in that movie? Was he
Played
in the show?
Glenn.
Glenn, yes, the guy who played Glenn. I
Yeah.
I loved him, you know.
Oh yeah, he's great.
So he's been doing really well for himself too. So
Yeah, I've been seeing that, and then he deserves it for sure.
yeah. Well, anyway, thank you so much. Like this was wonderful. How can people like reach out to you?
So I have a Instagram, which is just at Christina Krakowski, and the same with my TikTok. So it's easy; they're both the same. As well as if you want to keep up with my projects, I'm also on IMDb as well, and I tend to make sure that's updated as well. So yeah.
Can't wait for you to get your own like official website and it's got all the movies listed
Yeah.
and all that and contact it, like all that stuff.
Right.
Like I think that'll be really, really cool. Like yeah, if you gotta register at ChristinaKrakowski.com. Like make sure that's
It's on its way.
all right. Well, thank you so much. And everybody else, thank you guys for listening and hope you guys enjoyed this. And check her stuff out. Check out Massacre Academy is on the trailers online, right?
Yes, the trailer for Masker Academy and Wolf Hollow are both online.
There you go. So go check out that and hopefully those will be out pretty soon. So you guys can, watch those. Maybe later in the fall. That would be perfect
Yeah.
timing for those kind of movies. So, thank you so much, and everybody else, thank you all for checking this out, and have a good one.
Thank
Bye.
you.